Beyond, number 17 to be exact. I will give it a few moments while people are joining in just to say hi. And please, when you do join in, go ahead and use that chat and let us know where you're joining from, how you're feeling, and anything else that you want to. Some people just like sharing their LinkedIn profiles for better networking experience. So go ahead and do that. You have it on your right side of your screen. My name is Tinka. I'm your host, as usual, and it is a pleasure to be here one more time with you. For the past 1 year and a half, 2 years, actually, we've been doing these webinars, and they're very successful, and we hear a lot of great feedback from people all around the community. And yeah, the PMO leader is doing a really good job in keeping the community in close connection. And today we have a returning guest, Bill Dow. We've had the pleasure to have Bill last year in another episode where we talked about communication tools in projects.
Right.
And people were really excited about your presence, Bill, and what the advice that you shared back then. That we just wanted to have you one more time because
Wow.
you are writing so many books, and we can keep up with you.
Thank you.
Whenever you're writing a new book, we have to be there
You're
and
right
take it up.
beside me, right beside me.
Or right there, not creeping, just
Yeah.
just close by. So we really appreciate you being one more time with us here today. And folks, today we will be talking about something that is quite overwhelming for a topic that's quite overwhelming for some, the PMO life cycle. And this is pretty much in three words, we would say building, running, and shutting down a PMO. And of course, Bill has written a book about it, but he's also, I believe you are also holding different lectures and
Yep.
coaching sessions about it. So it's definitely a complex topic. And yeah, so it's going to be a very interesting discussion. I know people who are in the field, please do use that chat to put in your questions. If you want us to stop on any particular topic, just go ahead and let us know. And also tell us what you think about, what we're talking about. If you have a different opinion or if you have anything to add, we'd love to hear from you. But before we go into the nitty-gritty details, Bill, if a formal introduction is always nice, and I don't want to take that
Yeah.
away from you. So
I appreciate that. Thank you. And thanks for inviting me back. I love these conversations, and they're always informal and kind of off the cuff, which is really a great way to have a conversation, and it lets you dive deep into any one topic. So, yeah, thanks for that. So, Bill Dow, so 30 plus years of hands on experience. I'm running a very large PMO today. I've written 7 books. For the last 20 years, I've been a hands-on PMO director, manager, leader across multiple different companies: AT&T, Singular, Microsoft, and now University of Washington. So I just love this stuff. I'm just so passionate about it, and love kind of giving these types of talks, and sharing best practices and sharing what I've learned, and then hopefully some people can take some of this stuff back and apply it at their own companies.
wonderful. That's a lot of experience, Bill.
Yeah, no, but and I love it too, right? So there's a lot of people that do this and are not really passionate about it. I'm constantly learning and constantly trying to push that bar and really understand how you can make a great organization and run world class PMOs.
And how do you feel? So, it's impressive. You have so many books, and of course, that large experience really helps you with, putting all your thoughts and lessons
Yeah.
learned into these books. How do you, I guess, what's your reward when you have this book? What is your aim when you think about writing another book?
Well, it's obviously to be Harry Potter, and to get millions and millions of dollars, and and live the lap of luxury. No, no, it's really about sharing, right? It's really about, a lot of people go through this path and this journey, and they have to go through it alone, right? You can only Google so much or Bing so much, and you do really need people who have gone through it, to help you with this journey, right? And just taking little bits and pieces and saying, this could work in my organization. This could work. This could work. So the joy really is having people, refer to it, learn from it, comment and reach out and say, I've got your book. And so a lot of people go, hey, I've got your book and this really resonates, or it's really easy to read, or, that type of thing. So that's the takeaway. It's not about the money. There's, little to no money, but there's a lot of passion in my books, and there's a lot of passion in the topics. You just, these are not Harry Potters. Let's be clear. Which it would be nice if they were, but
the nice thing is that you and Harry Potter, your books and Harry Potter will also live forever.
That's right. In some landfill or some half-price bookstore someplace, right?
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go dive deep into the PMO Lifecycle book
Yeah.
then. Do you have a copy with you around
I
for
do.
people to
I lovely
cover?
do. Yep, here we go. It's a little hard to see. It's there. It's a big blue book, but yeah, PMO Lifecycle Building, Running, Shutting Down. So it's actually a follow-on from my Tactical Guide for Building a PMO book, which was all about building a PMO. This was the add-on to that.
Okay. So what shall we start then? Shall we start talking about the book is pretty much divided into three components, right? You have the building section, the running section, and the shutting down section.
Yeah, and I did that, right. So as I said, so the Tactical Guide for Building PMO, that was just about building. And then what I thought was, and as I was searching through this, and like you said, I've got lots of experience and background. What I was finding was, hey, we built it, and there's so much excitement around building a PMO, and there's so many people that are like, I'm a senior project manager. I just won a PMO job. Now what do I do? And so we need to build it. We need to build it. But what I found was there's no running. There's no like, hey, how do I run it? What do I do day to day? So I really felt like I needed to guide people through, again, over 10 PMOs, I need to guide people through what does day to day look like. So in the book, I basically had 4 big sections. I said, one of the things that you should really focus on is getting that executive support, and then getting them dashboards and getting them data and letting your executives understand what's happening in the day to day. Right. So I grew up at Microsoft. I'm a big Microsoft guy. So Power BI and dashboarding and reporting, but it's, there's Tableau, there's other reporting tools, but it was really around what happens day to day. Executives don't care about the execution of a single program. They want to know what's happening across your organization. So I started there and I said, okay, what can we get our executives? Right? How do we get them that data? And then from there, I tactically went down and I said, okay, now we need a set of dashboards and reports for the execution of your PMO, which is very different, right? When you're running a large organization, right? It's what do you do day to day, and how do you execute day to day compared to what's happening for all the programs or projects in your organization. So I started there first, right or wrong, but I always felt like that was a key component of where people should focus.
So day to day would be
Yeah, day to day. Yeah. So and then from there, what I did was I got into, like, tried to eliminate some of that. What do I do? I started to go and I said, okay, what are we going to do? Let's focus on, and I've always been big on repeatability and scalability, right? So let's say, for example, you've got a PMO. My PMO today is running 30 plus people, 100 plus projects. So what I said is, when you're running a PMO, you've got to think about scalability and repeatability. So I give this example, and a lot of people resonate with this, so I'll give it with you. So for example, say you were a customer of my PMO, and you had 7 or 8 projects going on for my customer. You were the marketing president or marketing director or something, and you had 7 or 8 active projects in my PMO. Okay. What if you dealt with 7 or 8, say 8 different project managers? And those 8 different project managers gave you 8 different status reports. They gave you they had 8 different color definitions. They gave you 8 different weekly status meetings, and you had 8 different experiences. How would you think, and how would you work in that environment? What do you think? You've got 8 different status reports and 8 different color conditions. Just even taking those two,
I would just quit.
right? You'd be completely confused, right? So wait, John says red means this, Bob says red means this, and Mary said red means this. You were like, can I just get a standard definition? So
What do you mean
when
by color definition? It's
so
a
what does a red project mean? The color condition of red, right?
mm,
We're emergency, we're over budget, we're over time. That color condition of what does red mean?
in
What
different
does
dashboards.
Yeah, what does yellow mean, right? We're caution, we've got potential problems. So when you think about running a PMO and you think about standard and consistent, you think about that experience across. You want everyone to be very repeatable and consistent so you get that same experience. When you see a red project across 8 different project managers, you know what that means. You know what yellow means. You get a 3 or 5 page status report, you know what those look like, right? You know exactly where to go. So it's all about repeatability and consistency. So in the book, what I did is I said, if you're going to think repeatable and consistent, you're going to have a things set up like standard CR processes and priority lists and templates and that type of thing, because that's the only way you can drive repeatability and consistency.
Okay. And how does that, I guess, how does that fit into getting the buy? And I'm assuming that all of this would be with the buy-in of the executives to some
Yeah,
extent.
yeah, 100%. Those are the ones that look for that consistency. Those executives will say, wait a second, I have 3 or 4 major projects. I need that same experience, right? And that when you get that consistency and that repeatability, it makes for much easier dashboards, reports, standard status reports, standard red conditions on dashboards. Give me all the red projects, right? And everyone's using, here are all the red projects in my PMO, and everyone's using that standard definition. Otherwise, they make it yellow. Otherwise, they make it green, and they don't land on that dashboard. And so with that, when you get that level of consistency, what you then do is you start driving the execution of your PMO based on those conditions. So for example, you could have a weekly red status meeting and you could say, hey, executives, let's everyone come to the table and help us out with these red projects or these red and yellow projects. And you give that consistent visibility to your executives of where your programs and projects are executing.
That's a really interesting concept.
And see, that's so different though than building a PMO, right? You're not going to think about week to week, day to day meetings on with your executives and what do you do about red and what do you do about that. You don't think about that when you're building a PMO, because the world is your oyster when you're building a PMO. You get the money, you get the staff, you get kind of everything you want because the executive said we need a PMO. So go ahead and build this PMO. But when you build it, it's different than running it. And that's why I was so passionate about, you got to have some running. You got to help people run the thing, because it's not as fun. It's not as sexy running a PMO as building a PMO.
Yeah, I know that. How do you feel about, because our lives involve a lot of reports, right? And in
Yeah.
order for you to keep track of things, you do need some form of dashboards and reports that you can see the execution and how things are coming along. But how do you feel about maybe people, sometimes using them excessively, spending
Yeah.
their life with into the
Yeah.
report?
Yeah. I don't know if excessively. I mean, I see that there's some great, like my current PMO and the last couple has all been based on Power BI. right? So we have Project Online, we have SharePoint, we have that whole world of Microsoft. And then with all that goodness, we get Power BI. So I don't know if there's an excessiveness. What I think it's really critical though is you run your PMOs from a data perspective. I think you have to run your projects from a data perspective. You've got to run your PMO from a data perspective. And therefore, when you're focusing on the data, you then figure out how to run your PMO based on that data. And so I don't know if it's an excessive amount of reports. I think you can have an excessive amount. There's no question. You can, have way too many, but really focusing in on the data, and then what are the big data components? There's timesheet data, there's project and program data, right? What are the big sections of data? And that's how you define what your Power BI and what your reporting strategy looks like.
Yeah. Okay. How about I guess the day to day? I don't know. What would you think that in running a PMO, what are the key tasks on a day to day basis for somebody who runs a PMO?
Yeah, I love that question because it's so different based on the size and the complexity. A lot of things, what you're going to do is you're going to look at your service offerings. You're going to look at what services does your PMO offer, and based on those services, you're going to look to see what you do day to day. So let's take an example, right? So if I have a service offering that's governance, for example, right? So what's the intake? What's the scoring? So day to day, I may put some cycles towards the governance process, right? Hey, we got to update our scoring system. Hey, we have to look at our intake process. What do we do about priority, right? So some of your cycles will be put on governance. There's clearly a component of people as well, right? You're running a large organization. You're running an organization. The O in PMO tends to be organization. Therefore, you're going to have some HR components. You're going to have hiring. You're going to have firing. You're going to have performance reviews. You're going to have merit increases. You're going to have all that goodness that makes up being an HR person, right? Running an organization. So a lot of times it really depends on the services your PMO offers. And then that's how you guide what you do on a day-to-day basis. But you also do, and what I strongly believe in, is a rhythm of business. What's my rhythm of business for my PMO? On Mondays, I do this. On Tuesdays, I do this. Wednesdays, right? So you have to have that rhythm of business, because if you don't, then your PMO will be chaos, right? You need that repeatability and that structure in how you drive your organization as well, which I believe is very different than, say, something like an HR. HR may not have that same level of rigor and structure because they don't have 100 plus projects going. But I would see us more combined to like finance. Finance is going to have end of month reports. They're going to have, there's some consistency in how a finance operation runs, or like a finance department runs, as the same as there's consistency across how a PMO runs. So day to day is really what you do. You control it in your business and by your service offerings.
And based on your experience with the PMO, the PMO leader would be directly interacting with all these other functions of the company.
They have to. I love that. They have to. Yeah, they have to. That's part of that. As a PMO leader, you look up, you look sideways, and you look down. And when you think sideways, that is the leaders of HR, the leaders of finance, the leaders of IT, the leaders of, right? You have to build that key relationship, because you're doing projects and programs on behalf, a lot of times, on behalf of those organizations. You're doing on behalf of finance, on behalf of marketing, on behalf of HR. So when you build that relationship sideways, which is other leaders of those organizations, it just helps you when your programs and projects are executing, and there's some challenges. You've built those personal relationships.
Yeah. And they will
key, right?
That's key. Yeah. Yeah.
And, and sometimes too and so a lot of us are built on the foundation of we've been junior project managers and program managers. Sometimes day to day, you got to get into the projects. Sometimes you got to look at them. Some you got to get your hands dirty and go, what risks, issues, schedules, action items. Let's get in there. Let's dive into that. Now, that's not scalable, right? And a lot of times when you are a good, solid project manager and you just know this stuff inside and out, and you get hired as a PMO manager, sometimes that's not. It's hard to let go, right? I would run the project this way. My risk and issues would look like this. My schedule would look like this. That's not scalable. And you have to think broad, not deep. Where project managers think deep, not broad necessarily. Not a black and white statement by no means. No.
um, no, but to kind of link to this point, what do you do, or what is your ability as a PMO leader to keep your team happy and
Yeah,
satisfied?
I love that. I love that question because I strongly believe to build a world-class PMO, it's about your people, right? And so what you have to do is you have to care about your people. You have to make it where your people they know that they can trust you. They know that it's not a punitive environment. And so you do things like you build leadership programs, you build mentoring programs, you build buddy systems. The mentoring program and the buddy system are in the book. I
Mm.
literally have been building these for years. This buddy system is crazy how good it is. And especially and it's not there, trust me, it's nothing special, but it's because we've gone to remote, it's even more special. But the concept of this buddy system is you buddy up. You buddy up two people, two project managers, two program managers, a program manager and a project manager, and you connect them together informally. So it's a 6 month, it's a 4 month, it doesn't matter. But you say, you guys are buddies, you guys connect. Now, what you talk about, when you talk about it, it doesn't matter. But you've got a buddy you can lean on. Hey, buddy, can you look at my stash report? Hey, buddy, can you help me with this PowerPoint or something? Hey, can I talk to you about my divorce? Whatever the case may be, right? Like it's just this connection that they go to coffee together, they go to lunch together, they do whatever they want. But it's this buddy system that they can turn to because a lot of things that I've found is the individual contributor, the project manager that's working, they don't tend to like to turn to their managers to say, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? What they would rather do is turn to a peer and say, hey, peer, can you help me with this? And now we've pivoted to remote. So it even makes it more important, right? A lot of companies are still remote and they're working remote. So having a buddy that they can connect to informally, we don't care what they talk about, when they talk about it, but we just want to buddy up so we ensure that they have someone that they connect to. That goes a long way in making a happy employee because they feel supported.
No, I think that's an interesting concept, and I've seen it. I work in pharmaceuticals, and I've seen mentoring and buddy systems, and I've been part
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
And they're all successful. There are also cases where, because the buddy system is not formal,
Yeah.
people just tend to
Not do it.
not
Yeah.
do it. Yeah, or one is more engaged than the other.
Yeah.
But then you can
Oh,
switch.
your buddy makes a difference. Your buddy makes a difference, right? And so
Yeah.
you can have good buddies and bad buddies, but that's the kind of fun to it, right? And as a project manager, you don't always get the best team. You don't always get the easiest team. So what this buddy system's doing is it's teaching you to work with different personalities in in an informal, indirect, no one's managing it, no one's watching it world, right? And so it's just the two of us, we're connecting. And if we don't connect, you as a project manager, you need to figure out how to focus and how to pivot because you may have a developer, a designer, an architect, maybe someone you're working with that you don't necessarily connect with. The buddy system will help you work through some of those nuances. So Informal, but a lot of fun. I've used it for years, and people actually love it. And people have gotten back to me and said, I've tried the buddy system, and they absolutely love it. But I also have people that have said, hey, I've got the worst buddy in the world. This 6 months can't be over fast enough, right? Tick, 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 tick. Please finish. Please finish. Can it be 4 months, not 6 months? Whatever the case may be, right? But so there's that, right? So you can have horrible
That.
buddies and you can have great buddies.
Have you seen also this program applied in between different functions? So, for example, a project manager and somebody from, I don't know, finance or HR.
Yeah, I haven't crossed that because what I haven't seen is a lot of these types of systems in other departments, right?
Mhm.
And it's not that it's PMO specific. I have a great example. I have a leadership program, okay? In this leadership program, and I've done this for years as well, where you take an individual contributor and you put them on the leadership team. For 6 months, that individual contributor is almost like a PMO manager. It's a PMO manager in training, if you would, right? And so they do everything. They're involved in all these staff discussions. They're just involved in everything. They're part of running the PMO. What I don't find is these same programs in different organizations. I don't see the finance leadership program, the HR leadership program, the marketing leadership program. And it's not like the PMO has to do it, but we're so structured, we're so rigorous in the way we approach, but we also have a path, right? We have a project manager to senior project manager to program manager to portfolio manager. We have this very defined PMI path, right? We've got PGMP, PFMP, all these PMPs, but it's really a path. And so because of that path, I wanted to give this mechanism to basically allow someone to go through that path. But so that's why I haven't mixed it with HRs or finances or different departments, because I don't see them running the same thing. They
That is
certainly
true.
could, though.
That is true. So we're
Have
probably
you
in the
have you
project
seen that?
management phase.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that? Like, have you seen a buddy system type of thing in your finance or your marketing or your what? Why do
No,
you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe we're the only ones who need buddies. They're antisocial.
But the thing is, though, even with my leadership program, think about that. Do you think there's no one in finance that's working tactically day to day, crunching those numbers, that wants to be the finance manager? Of course there are, right?
Yeah.
Do you think there's someone in engineering that's cranking out code every day that wants to be an engineering manager, wants to be an engineering director? Of course there are, right? So we want to provide programs to really help people grow and move through the career. We just so happen, PMI has done a great job. I don't know where PMI is at nowadays, but they've done a great job in this this CAPM to PMP to PGMP. They've done a great job giving you that path. I think PMO directors, PMO managers, leaders have to guide people through that path.
Yeah. So I've seen there's a lot of obstacles when it comes to, as you mentioned earlier, these buddy mentoring programs give you also that valuable working experience with somebody else who might or may not be an easy person to work with, but you do get an understanding of what the other one does.
That's
So
right.
that's why I was thinking that this might be helpful when you're working with other functions, like let's say finance, to better understand what each of these functions are doing. And
Yep.
what I've seen some organizations do is that they have those rotations where
Yeah.
they put people, they allow them to work on different roles for a
Yeah.
certain amount of time.
Yeah.
But it's as easy as implementing a buddy system where you can just buddy somebody with somebody from a different role.
Yep.
And inevitably, they will end up sharing experiences and better
Of course.
understanding what that department does.
Yeah. Oh, no, I think cross department is a brilliant idea. I think that's a wonderful idea. Where we've taken this idea just locally in the PMO is like you've got a senior project manager that is dying to be a program manager, right? So link that senior project manager with the program manager, and they'll be training that happens there just in the conversation. How do you run this program? Like, what do you do to run a program? I'm just running projects. How do you look at interdependencies, or how do you look across? So you could do that within your own PMO as well, just based on the different roles. So you've got portfolio managers, program managers, project managers, right? That gives you enough variety that you could do that within your PMO as well. But cross is a brilliant idea.
Just for the better sake of projects.
Yeah,
And of course, that's
100%.
also a great idea for people who want to develop, to pick the brains of those who are already on
Yeah, yeah.
those positions. That makes a lot of sense.
And think about this, like there often in a lot of projects there's a finance component, right? Imagine if your project managers, yeah, and some there is, some there isn't, but in imagine if your project managers were connected with people in finance. They're like, how do I do this? What capital, blah blah blah. How do I do this? And so they would have someone that they could really work to on a subject area that would help them drive their projects more effectively.
Yeah, yeah, and
Right.
also
And so,
understanding the priorities, I guess, of each department.
yeah,
Like finance, for example, they have their quarterly year-end closing times when
sure.
they ask for different activities, and you are just bombarding them with
Yeah,
different costs, and you don't understand why they're not able to.
yeah,
I'm giving a real life
yeah,
example.
yeah, exactly. Well,
But
and
people
that's the thing, right? Is yeah, you can learn, right? If you can learn across different industries, you just get so much stronger and so much better. So I love that idea. That's a brilliant idea.
Okay, so we covered the keeping people happy during running a
Yeah.
PMO. We talked about dashboards, reports. What else do you think is relevant for
Yeah,
people running a PMO?
I'm just going to come back to around, that rhythm of business and really understanding how you have certain checkpoints in your week, not necessarily your day, but in your week on how the project's executing. So, of course, you could look at dashboards. Of course, you could look at give me all the red projects, all the yellow projects, all the green projects, whatever the case may be, right? But you have to establish a set of checkpoints, right? Run your PMO from data. You have to establish some checkpoint meetings throughout the week so you can understand really what's going on. So you've got 5 or 6 or 10 or 25 red projects, for example. What's really happening in the red? What help does a project manager need to move through that red? Right. And so I think it's really, really important that you establish those checkpoints during the week so that, or sorry, your PMO members know that there's checkpoints where they can come and ask for help, and you do everything you possibly can do to help them. So I think that's another key component. And again, it falls to that running your PMO from a pure data perspective and
And are
having the
these
dashboards and
checkpoints,
reports. Mhm.
do you find these checkpoints helpful to be in a sort of a one-on-one, one-to-one type of meetings, or
No,
general?
no, not at all. I say you bring all the PMs together. We had a series my last PMO. We had a series of meetings where we brought all the PMO project managers together, and they all helped each other. Hey, I've got this problem, right? And here's my situation. What do you do? And one PM would say, I would do it this way, or I would do it that way. And so it was like crowdsourcing. They basically all helped each other. And then that individual project manager could take back all that goodness and all those learnings from the other PMs and say, okay, I'm going to implement it this way. But having your managers there as well and having the leads there to really help as well, and give them their advice and their background, that helps as well. So I think there's that component where one-on-ones are great and that's good for the manager and the project manager, but no, I think that crowdsourcing idea has worked out wonderfully.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good point. I think also it's how do you make it in a way that your project managers don't see these checkpoint meetings as more of a meeting where they just have to come and present the status, and that's it.
Yeah.
How do you
So
make them engaged
yeah.
and actually
So
together?
focus on, so the first answer is what we do is reds and yellow projects. Let's just start there. So greens don't have to come. So if you got a ton of green projects, everything's working perfect, why would you have to come? You don't have to come. So reds and yellows, there's some situation of some kind, right? So then what you do is the minute that these individuals, the project managers will come, or program managers will come, and they know the meeting's valuable, or they know that they will get help, then it becomes a valuable meeting to them. If they come and they present their red project and we go, okay, great, let's move on. No, right? That becomes a checkpoint. But it's like, I presented my red project. I've got a problem with the stakeholder. I got a problem with the budget. What can you guys do to help me out? And then we start problem solving. Then they'll go, oh, that's a valuable meeting. Because I have certainly had that, right? And I have certainly had project managers who have come to this meeting going, yeah, what? Like, I'm running my project here. What do you want? Like, yeah, is this just a checkbox meeting? Or, and so you've had to convince them. So it's really about making them understand this is for them. We're here to help them. Because I think you have to be a leader that really supports your PMs, or you're never going to run a world-class organization. They have to feel supported. They have to feel it's not a punitive environment. And you roll up your sleeves and go, how would I help you and how can I help you? That then changes the dynamics of those meetings tremendously.
Awesome. We have a few questions popping
Okay.
up. Do you
Great.
want to go into them?
Yeah.
So we have one about the book, if it addresses how to scale up a PMO service after an acquisition, especially in the areas of PMO governance and quality control. And if there are any templates or examples.
Yeah. So scaling up. Yeah. So crawl, walk, run. Crawl, walk, run, right? Love crawl, walk, run. I should have a t-shirt, crawl, walk, run. And so when we talk about scaling up, right, I would step back and I'd say, okay, what services do you have today? Do you have the right services? And do you know you have the right services? So yes, the book definitely covers services. I have to check. I'm sure it does. It's been a while since I read it. But anyway, point is, yes, it's got services in there. But when we talk about scaling up, you got to understand kind of where you are today. And so I would look at scaling up a little bit differently. Let me explain. So yes, you got to understand what services you have and why you have them and what you need. But I would look at scaling up, and I'd use maturity models. And yes, it's definitely full of maturity models. So think about it today. We talk PMO governance. Let's just take governance for a sec. Where are we today with governance? Where do we want to go? What's our baseline scale from a maturity? And then where do we want to go? So when we talk about scaling up, that is, I'm at a 1 today and I want to move to a 2. That's scaling up. So you got to understand what services you have, why you have them, what business problem you're trying to solve, and then you apply your services to a maturity model. So I could be at a 2 for governance and I want to move to a 3. I could be at dashboard and reporting at a 1 and I want to move to a 2. So that's how I would handle that, and that's how I would approach that, and that's how I have. And yes, a good chunk of what I just said is in that book, or is in the book. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah. If you have any follow-up, yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Okay. And then we have another question from Jason.
Okay.
Any for getting a PMO leader at the strategic table, or at least in the room? When there's an leadership change, how do you inform them of the PMO's function and value?
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Jason. That's a great question. I actually have a YouTube video coming out on this same topic very shortly. I just filmed it. And so I'll give you a sneak preview. So basically, okay. So, that strategic table is tough to get to, right? And so sometimes you struggle to get to it. Sometimes you're at the seat of the table. Sometimes you'll never get to that seat of the table. But what are we really talking about at a seat at the table is we're talking about the value that the organization perceives in the PMO, right? Seat at the table, what does that really mean? That means they want your opinion. They want to listen to you. They want to hear what you're saying. And that's really what a seat at the table means. values, right? Do you actually need a seat at the table? Yes or no, but you want your PMO to be valued. Okay. How do you get value? Second part of your question. How do you get value? Right. So the value is going to depend on what your executives think value is. Okay. So there's lots of kind of thoughts and processes to value, but think about that, right? If you've got a, depending on your PMO type, right? So if you've got just a normal directed PMO that's running programs and projects, if you're executing on time and on budget, right, there's a perception of value. There's also a perception of value is if your programs and projects are giving and getting the value that the programs and projects have been delivering. What's the ROI? What's the benefit? What do we get by delivering this? So there's certainly a value around delivering on time and on budget. The triple constraint has been around for years. But the new way of looking at it is what's the actual value of the project or the program that you're delivering, and are you achieving that value? So it's really around understanding the value that your PMO is delivering as a whole, and then selling that value to your leadership so you get that virtual or that actual seat at the table so they will listen to you. Meaning they're driving strategic projects, they're driving the strategy of the company. How does your PMO play within that strategy? Because if you don't have any plan, that strategy, you're in trouble. Does that make sense? So value is a very key and loaded word. And so that's why it's really hard, because one value to one executive or a set of executives could be a very different value to a different set of executives. Thanks. Oh, good. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Sunil. And you would think, Bill, that considering that the executives are the ones who are more so um, creating and building the PMO, you would
Yeah.
think that you wouldn't need to sell it.
Yeah, yeah. So my peers in this industry and we kind of fight over the word selling, right? But I'm in it day to day. So I'm running this thing day to day. So I understand selling. I don't think selling's a bad thing. We talk about elevator speeches. We talk about, hey, what are the big things your PMO's doing? So sell is not a bad thing. Sell shouldn't be looked at as negative. Sell is you're so proud of your organization. You're so proud of what you are doing, the programs and the projects and the strategy that your organization's doing. You're constantly out there selling. But we often look at selling like a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. I think it shows you're proud. Like you're a proud Canadian, you're a proud American, you're proud of your PMO, and you're proud of what your organization's doing. If you don't sell or don't show that proudness, your people will catch that. Your people are going to catch that. The leader's not proud of the organization. You got to be selling. You got to be proud. And so maybe selling's a wrong word, but whatever. I'm sticking with selling.
No, I think it makes sense. We sell ourselves each day, right? In different
That's
ways.
right. Yeah. Jason says, what's your top sales tactics, right? Well, so there's passion, right? You got to show passion. You got to show passion. You got to know what's going on in your organization. You have to sell your people. Look at the amazing job Frank just did. Look at the amazing job that Mary just did. Right? So you're selling your people, you're selling your deliverables, you're selling your organization, and you're constantly out there as a proud salesman of what your organization can do. Now you also have to deliver. You've got to deliver, right? If you've got 10 projects and 5 of them are red and 5 of them are just a mess, right? Then that's not delivering. You can sell, right? That's lipstick on a pig, right? That's basically selling, but you're not selling some goods. So you got to deliver. But if you do the right things for your people, they'll deliver. If you're not in a punitive environment, they'll deliver. So if they know you're passionate about them and you're passionate about the organization, it's amazing how you can build these organizations.
what about a selling technique in case you have to present something to the executives that is not working?
Yeah. So yeah. So it's a data conversation, right? So executives like data. So sometimes things don't go well. Sometimes people put the best effort in, they've done the best they possibly can, and projects don't go well. I've done this for 30 years. I haven't been successful in all my projects. So let's be clear, right? Some things you don't go well. But if you present it with data, you present it with some options, executives are often very reasonable and they will 100% help you through. No executive wants you to fail. The failure of a project would be a failure to the company. No one's going to ask for that. But what they're going to do is say, don't come to me with your problems, come to me with possible solutions, and then they can work through those together. So does that make sense? So it's really around a data perspective.
Yep, yep. Now, I do have a follow-up question now because
Sure.
I know there are some companies where the executives decide upon a project even though a PMO might not recommend it
Yep.
because it's kind of against all odds that it would be
Yep.
successful. So how do you, I guess, how do you manage that kind of situation where you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So what you do, so you got to do it, right? Executive says jump, you got to do it. You got to do it. But what you do is you put phase gates in place. You put stopping points in place. You don't go too far down the project and then do a checkpoint. Go a little bit farther, do a checkpoint, right? Sprint reviews, right? Big agile fan, sprint reviews. Hey, this isn't working. Can we adjust this? Phase gates and waterfall IT, right? So yes, go ahead, do the project. You have to do the project. Your executives are telling you to do it, but look for stopping points. Look for points in and along the lines of the projects. Just because, let's just take IT for example, waterfall projects could go 8 months, a year, whatever the case may be. It doesn't mean it goes that long before you have stopping points. So the more stopping points you can put in place, you can course correct, and therefore maybe that big disaster of a project coming in and it's the worst idea in the world, you can actually course correct very early and then turn that disaster project into a successful project.
That's good. That's a good idea to do closer stopping points.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess also
More stopping points. Yeah.
more stopping points, and then also put that data in front of
Yeah.
whatever you're delivering
Yeah.
so they can see the results if
Yeah. Bring
whatever
your
those are.
steering committee, right? Have your executives part of the steering committee and then have them make the decision of what they're seeing firsthand of that project, right? And so have those stopping points.
Okay. I just so folks, if you have any more questions, we are about 10 minutes shy of the discussion. In the meantime, Bill, I don't think we covered shutting down a PMO.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been actually part of that. So let's talk about shutting down. So it's really interesting because what's the O, right? The O is an organization, and how many times do they shut down HR? How many times do they shut down finance? How many times they shut down marketing? Never, right? Never. They never shut down those three organizations, right? And every company has an HR, maybe one person, but they have an HR. But they shut down PMOs all the time. So what do you do? So I documented that in my book, right? I've been through some shutdowns. I've been through these scenarios where they shut down. I was working for a large company and I was running a supportive PMO. Okay. So a supportive PMO. So just basically providing training, providing templates, providing best practices, PMP, all that goodness. Supportive PMO. I didn't run single projects. I didn't run programs. I ran a supportive PMO. Got laid off. They shut down that PMO, right? So shutdowns happen all the time. I was running a large program. The program got canceled. It was a PMO for a program. Shut down. Got laid off. Right? Oh yeah, that's a regular journey here at IT. But point is, what is the steps and what are the processes that you have to think about when you shut down. And a lot of people ignore this, right? They ignore this because they get laid off. They ignore this because it's not my problem, it's the company's problem. But there's POs, there's software, there's vendors, there's lots of things that you have in place. You have to formally shut those down. I have XYZ software. I have a 5-year maintenance or a 5-year license on that software. The PMO shut down. We're not going to need that anymore. Can I get out of that contract? So there's contracts, there's vendors that you have to lay off, there are to cut contracts on. There's employees that you have to lay off. So I wanted to document what are the step-by-step processes. Of course, going to be different, but directionally think about what are the step-by-step processes that you have to do to formally shut down a PMO. And it's not a fun time, right? It's, possible layoffs, possible having to get a different job, leave the organization. It's not a fun time. So when you have stressful situations and you have those scenarios, really the best way to get through that is by a step-by-step process, right? And so leaning on this step-by-step process will help you through the emotions of shutting down a PMO. It's not fun when you've got people crying in your office that they're going to lose their job because the PMO shut down, right? And you're the one doing it, but there's nothing you can do about it. The executives have said the thing's shutting down. You have to deal with it. And that's also part of being a PMO leader. You've got to cut, you've got to lay off, you've got to let go of these vendors who have wives and mortgages and houses, and they have all those things, but you have to make that decision to let them go. Yeah. So there's a lot in that shutdown that people just don't consider because it's a really emotional and tough time.
Including the personnel, wouldn't that be more of HR, or is it just because you as a PMO
you're part of it? I've been part of it. Yeah. I mean, you're the leader of the organization. HR will play that formal role 100%. There's that component of it, severances and all that goodness. But you as the HR manager, you're actively involved in that. Or even vendors, right? All the vendors are people. They have mortgages and houses and kids, right? And so you got to let them go. And so again, it's an emotional time. And if you're running a PMO for a program and the program shuts down, right, then of course you're going to get rid of the organization.
I guess there was also that case where it is a common decision that a project or a program might not make sense to continue. So then you would be in the decision of shutting down.
Yep. So of course, and that's the checkpoints along the way. This program's just not working. But wait, there's a whole organization, depending on the size and the complexity of the program, there's a whole organization that's supporting this program that's not working. That's not giving the original ROI that Jason was talking about, right? The value, it's not working. We're never going to get there. Okay, shut it down. Whoa, wait a second. That means laying off, getting rid of people, blah, 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 blah. What's the process?
I guess it depends also on different industries. So probably in IT, there's a lot of this, as you mentioned, there's a lot of project starting, project stopping. I don't know, for example, in my experience in healthcare, there's not that many because they invest a lot of money.
That's right.
And they can repurpose them somehow. Yeah. So they prefer not to. I don't know about other industries, but
it's a great call. You're not going to see a bridge project shut down and the bridge only go halfway, right? Yeah, like definitely construction, right? But definitely in the IT shop and a lot of IT type of projects, regardless of the industry, they do often shut down. So depending again on the size.
The manner of that they're lacking maybe when they build a PMO of some data collection or research.
Yeah, 100%. Like a lot of PMOs start as pet projects, right? A lot of PMOs start as something majorly went wrong. I call it the PMO cycle, right? Not life cycle, PMO cycle. And it's PMO starts 3 to 5 years later, the PMO shuts down, PMO starts, PMO shuts down, right? And so you're right, is when you're starting a PMO, there's a set of data of the why they have to collect. But often something majorly went wrong on a major program, and some executive will say, guess what we need? We need a PMO, right? Just to help solve this band-aid, and the band-aid's a PMO. But that means the people are just kind of randomly put into it. They randomly get started. They do the best they possibly can. Everyone's got the best intentions, right? And so they do the best they can, but they're not doing the step-by-step process. And when you don't follow the step-by-step process, when you get to running and shutting down, it's much easier because you don't have the data. To your point, they don't have the data.
Yeah. Less shutting down projects if you would have more.
PMOs. Yeah. Less shutting down programs, less shutting down projects, and then ultimately less shutting down PMOs. But there's definitely a structured process. If you're running a PMO today and your executive came to you and said, tomorrow we're shutting it down, what do you do? Do you just walk away? Or do you go, okay, I have to lay off these employees. I have to get rid of these vendors. I have to shut these contracts down. There's X amount of budget. What do I do with all my budget? Where does that go? Right? There's all these different components that you have to think about when you shut it down.
You can have a plan in place.
Got to have a plan. Yeah, the whole book, and it comes with a template. I call it the PMO build schedule, but the whole book comes with a template. And the template is, how do I start it? How do I run it? How do I shut it down? It's the tactical steps. It's like 800 rows of project, but you don't need everything, but it does walk you through it.
Yeah. And I believe you also talk about, and maybe we didn't get the chance to cover this one, but also transition, when people transition, right? From when you have team changes, for example, to have a transition plan.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. So that's we talked a little bit about templates and processes. I 100% agree. I have done that for years where I make my active employees have a transition plan. And they're like, what? You're crazy. I'm not going anywhere. I've been here forever. I'm not going anywhere. No. Have a transition plan. Because one of the things we do, and we pay for it in surveys, it's not a good thing, but we often have to move project managers from project to project. Right? We have to say, hey, you're running this one now. It's all going good. Let me put you over there because we got to solve this fire. It's the worst. Customers hate it. Everyone hates it. But sometimes it has to happen. Therefore, active project managers need transition plans so another project manager can come in and take over. It's not about the project manager leaving, right? And you got to get that kind of through their heads. It's not about you leaving or you quitting or whatever. It's about being able to move you around in a seamless way with little to no impact on your projects. And so transition plans are critical, 100%.
Yeah. And I think it's also critical to have somebody oversee that transition. I've been through many transitions, and I've seen, not having a plan in place, everybody does it in their own style.
Yeah.
You have some that do it very thoroughly. You have some that do it very lax. You have some that don't do it at all.
Yeah.
Especially in countries where, for example, you can just, leave without necessarily even giving a notice.
Yeah.
And I think that's problematic.
Yeah, that's a huge problem. Yeah, no, 100%. And that happens all the time, right? Doing this for a long time, project managers back in the PMO and the Y2K days, project managers would leave for $1 or $2 more an hour, right? They just left me. I was like, but it's only $1 an hour. Whatever, it's better opportunity. I'm going. So they would leave and I'd be stuck. They'd have 3 to 5 projects or 3 projects or whatever. And I'm like, So then I'd have to get someone to take over those projects. Where are the meetings? Who are the key stakeholders? Where are the documents? Where are the, all the goodness that's in a transition plan, right? And so when you got a transition plan, someone takes over and they start reading through it and they know exactly how the project's been executed. It's only fair to them. It's only fair to them to have a structure in place to take over.
Yeah.
What will the PMO of the future look like? Yeah, what will the PMO of the future look like? I don't know. I mean, there's AI, right? And so I'm kind of a anti-AI a little bit guy, but because I believe strongly in art and science of project management. But what will the future? I think, I think we're still growing. I think we're still learning. I think when you think about the PMO of the future, you're going to look at your services you're offering. You're going to look at maybe an AI service, maybe a recovery service. I think it's really going to depend on the needs and the wants of your organization and your executives that really help drive that future of the PMO. Future of the PMO for me could be very different than the future of the PMO for you. I think in a lot of cases it's company specific and executive specific.
So we will not have an AI conversation.
I know I am the wrong guy. If you think about the art and science of project management, and I love ChatGPT and I love BART and I love what Microsoft's doing with Copilot. I do. I love it. I think it's amazing. But think about the root of project management. It's the art and science of project management. Sure, ChatGPT can do the science. It can't do the art. And if we take away the art and science of project management, this profession is going to be in trouble. So calm down on AI
Yeah,
over there.
yeah. I
Calm
think
down.
I think we need to settle keep our temper and not
Just
explode
yeah,
it because it's not
just
yet.
keep. Yeah, no, it's not there yet. But go to the root of how successful project managers make it in this field. It's relationships, it's the art, and it's the science. So you have to be kind and have a good schedule.
That's an amazing ending. Keep the
That's what I was thinking. What a good way to end. Be kind, have a good schedule, a good wrist log.
thank you, Bill. This
Thank
was
you. That's a pleasure.
one more time. It was fun and
Yeah.
it was a great discussion. We will probably see you again.
Just keep talking. Sure.
We'll get together
Let's
again.
have an AI conversation. Come on, let's do it. Let's talk about it.
We can think about a debate, maybe.
Yeah.
We can find somebody who is a very big supporter of AI, and then we can have a debate, maybe.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not anti-AI. I just think that they're trying to, when you look at the data of what they're saying, it's going to do this. It's going to mundane project tasks. I would look at that very, very differently. I just think that they're trying to put the stuff out there way too fast. Come down to the art and science of project management.
I think it's working for the general public. The ChatGPT, everybody uses it right now.
Sure.
I have it.
Yeah, but are you going to take all your project data and send it up to OpenAI? You're going to send all your project data to a different company and release your secrets? I got a secret project I'm working on, XYZ. Okay, sure, OpenAI, just take that. No problem. Take that up there.
That's a very good point. I think people have not done that.
No, I don't know. But so that's what I'm saying is if you had a closed system and I could take a private project and leave it within my organization, yeah, I'm not anti all the goodness that stuff will create. What I'm thinking is that when you look at the stuff that people are quoting, it doesn't make sense. And no one's willing to challenge that. Project managers will not have to do mundane project reports. Well, what mundane project reports? Tell me more about that. Right? Like they don't make sense. These things don't make sense. So I don't know. I'm willing to debate anyone on it, sure. Because I'll come back to art and science. Right. And that's how we've been successful in this industry.
So
I still want to leave with be kind and have a good schedule.
that's okay. We'll keep that one.
Okay.
But Bill, you are indeed a practitioner of art and science when it comes to project management. So that's why we really appreciate you being here and walking us through the PMO life cycle. We took it from scratch to bottom. So it was a really good discussion, and thank you to our audience as well. Thank you for your questions, folks. Already, if you're members of the PMO Leader, you have access to the recording, and you can grab your PDUs as well. This is episode number 17, so you have a bunch of hours there to log in if that's something that you're looking for. But of course, these discussions are very valuable. So the PDUs shouldn't be the reason to watch them. One more thing for the audience, and Bill, of course, I know you will be joining us as well. We have our PMO Global Conference this year, once more in October. And whoever is interested, you have all the information you need on LinkedIn. We're very excited about it. It's going to be a grand event and a long event.
Great.
That's right, Indu.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Our organizing team, so she's supporting us. Thank you, Indu. Yeah, it's going to be a cool event. And in about 2 weeks, August 1st, we will start promoting for our next webinar in Books and Beyond. We're not taking a summer vacation. We keep on these webinars because people just love them, and we like pleasing our community. So I will see you in about 2 weeks. You will see on LinkedIn all the details about the next webinar. And yep, that is pretty much it. Bill, thank you once again.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone for attending, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. And we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.